Hello there, I'm Brian. I am Finlag's imaginary, identical twin brother. He told me that if I behaved myself, he would let me record a video and put it on his channel. Unlike him, I'm a creationist. I believe that God created the whole universe in 6 24-hour days. He chilled out on the 7th day because he was knackered. This was either a Saturday or a Sunday, only God knows for sure. He told Moses to keep this day holy, pretty much forever. The reason I believe these things is that I have faith that everything in the Bible is literally true, exactly as it was written down. Even if some of these things seem to contradict, the thing is that I accept that God is the ultimate authority, and that if the book he co-authored, inspired, or whatever says this, then it is so. What do humans know anyway? We're all vastly inferior to him, and he rightfully demands our supplication, our absolute obedience, and of course our worship. What self-respecting deity wouldn't? Mind you, according to the Bible, he is the one true God, which, like I said, means that that is true, along with everything else in the Bible. I believe it very strongly because that's what it says in the book itself. Not only that, but I feel it in my heart. At least, I get a warm, fuzzy feeling when I think about how great God is. In the book of Isaiah, it was prophesied that a virgin would conceive, and that there would be a voice crying in the wilderness, which, as if by magic, actually happened several centuries later. And the New Testament tells us about John the Baptist, and his unusual but no doubt delicious and nourishing diet, as well as a young virgin girl called Mary, who was impregnated by God himself in his Holy Spirit manifestation. And 9 months later, the baby Jesus popped out in a manger and a house, and he became the third part of the Holy Trilogy. What a wonderful story. The reason I know, or at least believe, that all of this really happened, is that I have been guided by the Holy Spirit myself. You know, that warm, fuzzy feeling I was telling you about. And this feeling, or intuition, has told me that such stories could not possibly have come from mere human minds. They're far too imaginative and profound. We don't know that much about Jesus' early life, but when he was a proper adult, he bumped into John the Baptist, who was standing in a river, digesting locusts and wild honey. Somehow he knew who Jesus was, and agreed to baptize him, even though he thought he wasn't worthy. But he did it anyway, and lo and behold, the heavens opened and the Holy Spirit, this time in his dove manifestation, flew down and magically turned Jesus into an even more superhuman than he already was. From then on, people knew him as Jesus Christ. He was almost as super as Yahweh now, the one true super God. So now the trilogy was complete, very holy and definitely deserving of eternal worship. George Lucas had nothing on him, them, him, them. Sometimes heathens argue with me and try to tell me I'm wrong about the age of the universe and the origins of life. Their stories do sound plausible, but my faith and my confidence in God's awesomeness tells me that he created all of those billions of stars and galaxies as a light source, so we could see our way around in the dark if we needed to go anywhere when the moon isn't shining, which, by the way, only looks like it reflects sunlight. Did I mention how awesome God is already? You know, he created the heavens and the earth just as they are now. And when astrophysicists say that the finite speed of light means that there hasn't been enough time for the light from stars over 6,000 light years away to reach us yet, what they don't realize is that God created them that way. It's a bit like starting a movie part way through. God can do these things. If he wants to make it seem like the universe is 13.7 billion years old, he can do that. He's God. He can do anything he likes. He even created the cosmic microwave background radiation, just the way it is. How awesome is that? There are some people who believe that the old universe hypothesis, who claim to be Christians, but they can't be true believers like me. They obviously haven't been blessed with the Holy Spirit like I have. They'll end up in the lake of fire with all the other heathen sinners. Poor deluded fools. Mind you, they do deserve it. Not only is God infinitely good, infinitely wise, and infinitely loving, kind and merciful, He's also infinitely jealous and infinitely just. I hope you unbelievers are beginning to understand why I worship Him, and why you should do the same. Must go now. May God have mercy on you all. Heathen trash. Hello, it's me, Brian again, Finlog's imaginary twin brother, here for a second time to try to persuade you to believe that God is terrific, and that even though He already knows whether you are going to heaven or hell, He still wants you to accept Him and His Son Jesus into your heart, so you can go and sing hymns of praise with a choir of heavenly angels, forever. Or you'll go to the other place. The thing is that you don't know which way you're going, but God does. Everything has a divine purpose, and one of God's purposes must be to savour your confusion. This kind of reminds me of how He used to enjoy the smell of all those sacrificial burnt offerings. But even though He's unchanging and eternal, He no longer requires us to sacrifice animals like He used to. He came up with an ingenious way around that. Last time I told you about how He magically impregnated a young virgin girl called Mary, and how she gave birth to Jesus of Nazareth. Well, this Jesus was blessed with a supersized dose of the Holy Spirit, and He became the third part of the Holy Trilogy. And in order to forgive us for the sinful nature He created us with, God arranged it so that Jesus would be tortured and killed by wicked people, and this not only absolves us from everything we've done wrong, provided we believe the story, of course, but it also satisfied Yahweh Himself, to the point that He no longer even wanted us to carry out the blood sacrifices. Genius! Who other than the one true super-God could have come up with a foolproof plan like that? He even arranged it so that Jesus' death was only temporary. He magically came back to life 3 days after, and after spending some time with His disciples, as if by magic, He flew up to heaven. Last time I spoke a little about how the Big Bang and the arguments put forward by cosmologists and astrophysicists could not possibly be true, because they contradict the superior account of creation which we find in the Bible. And, like I said, we're just puny, insignificant creatures who think we've got it all figured out. But the point that the heathen sinners, and even some of the so-called moderate Christians fail to realize, is that God is the ultimate authority. He's the super-boss. If He chooses to dictate or inspire a bunch of Middle Eastern Bronze-Aged men to record His stories, then we must accept that that is the best method of communicating the message to us. When we read the Bible and marvel at its brilliance, we discover that our awesomely amazing Creator doesn't want us to have a good understanding of how the world works. At least not one based on evidence found outside the Bible. God would rather that we believe the stories. We must put our skepticism to one side and accept His holy authority. As far as God is concerned, belief and faith far outweigh knowledge and understanding, and it is these attributes which determine whether our souls go to heaven or hell after we die. The Bible clearly tells us that heaven is a really, really, really nice place, and that hell is unspeakably awful. Who would choose to go there for an eternity of torment? Who would choose to spend more time than it's possible to imagine being burnt to a crisp, beaten to a pulp, maimed and tortured? So, the simple and obvious solution is to convince ourselves that God is the ultimate manifestation of goodness, morality, and all the other good stuff, and to accept the sacrifice which Jesus made on our behalf, effectively absolving us of the guilt we inherited from Adam and Eve, plus all of the other bad things we've done in our sinful lives. So, by believing and accepting all this, we can appease God, and pretty much guarantee our ticket to heaven. As a young Earth creationist, I need to believe that the Earth and the wider cosmos are no older than about 6,000 years old. Unfortunately, God has made this a little tricky for us, because He's planted quite a lot of evidence which makes it seem as if it's all much, much older. He really knows how to test our faith in Him. But, like I said before, we must acknowledge the superior authority of Him and His book, and pay attention to that comfortable, warm and fuzzy feeling in our hearts, which happens to be the Holy Spirit, which is there to guide us all to the ultimate truth, the biblical truth. Because the Bible cannot contain any errors, the theory of evolution by natural selection cannot be right, at least not on the sort of timescale which the planted evidence suggests. We do find fossils in the geological strata which make it look like the ancestors of modern plants and animals were different and more simple the further back in time we go, but we can dismiss all of that. We must dismiss it as an illusion. The same goes for dendrochronology. God is a very clever deity here too, because He has made it seem like there is an unbroken record of living and dead trees whose annual growth rings tell us what the weather was like every year for about 40,000 years. That's nearly 8 times the age of the universe, according to the Bible. Our awesomely omnipotent Creator must have put all this evidence in place, all over the planet, shortly before He created the Garden of Eden. So it's not like He planted a new forest with seeds. He must have magically poofed mature forests and habitat into existence, which included a mixture of young, old, and even dead vegetation. If that's not amazing to think about, I don't know what is. There are many other things which make it seem like the Earth and the universe are orders of magnitude older, but, like I said before, we can and must dismiss all of this evidence, all of the ice core samples, the fossils, the peat bogs, plate tectonics, the geological record, and even the DNA, which corroborates what Charles Darwin came up with and makes it seem like all life forms today are distant cousins, that we all share common ancestors, all the way back through time on what evolutionary theorists call the tree of life. As if they know what they're talking about. It's all part of God's divine plan to weed out those who allow doubt into their lives, condemning them to eternal suffering, and surrounding Himself with true believers who will continuously tell Him how great He is, because that's what He wants and that's what He likes, and rightly so. Hopefully by this point I will have persuaded more of you to turn your back on Satan, to abandon your evil and treacherous ways and join me in worship as we eagerly await the end of the world.